Her Grace will be more comfortable beside the household staff, Duchess Lavinia announced. Laughter travelled across the auction hall. Amelia Harcourt looked at the narrow chair placed behind the servant's screen. Though she had been Duchess of Briarwood for 12 years, the oldest families still remembered only that her father had traded ships and grain. At the centre of the room stood Sebastian Vale, Duke of Ashbourne, watching his estate's debt being sold to men already discussing which villages they would empty first. Amelia placed her bidding card upon the servant's table. "You seated me here because my family earned its money," she said. "That may prove inconvenient." Before midnight, the final hammer fell. The nobles stopped laughing. The merchant-born Duchess now owned every debt attached to the Duke of Ashbourne and could take his entire estate by morning. 3 hours earlier, Amelia had entered Harrington Auction House through the same doors as 6 dukes, 4 bankers, and nearly 20 landowners. Only she had been asked to wait while her invitation was examined. The clerk turned the card over twice. "Dowager Duchess of Briarwood. That is what it says. I was informed that tonight's sale was restricted to principal investors. I am one." His eyes moved to Clara Mayfield, Amelia's accountant, who carried a locked case containing banking certificates. "Commercial representatives may wait in the lower gallery. Miss Mayfield is not my representative. She is my chief accountant." The clerk lowered his voice. "Ladies do not generally attend debt auctions." Amelia glanced into the hall. Duchess Lavinia appears to have survived the journey. Lavinia stood beneath the chandeliers, receiving greetings as though the auction belonged to her. She was Sebastian's aunt and the most influential landowner in the northern counties. Her smile sharpened when she saw Amelia. "My dear Briarwood, I had not realized ship owners had begun collecting dukedoms as well as cargo. My husband's title was not listed for sale." "Not yet." Several guests laughed. Amelia saw Sebastian hear the remark. He remained still beside the auction table, one hand resting on the back of an empty chair. His dark evening coat was perfectly cut, but exhaustion showed beneath his controlled expression. The sale concerned debts totaling more than £200,000. If the principal creditor demanded immediate settlement, Sebastian would lose Ashbourne Hall, 3 farming villages, 2 mills, and the rights to a coal seam beneath the eastern fields. To the men surrounding him, those were assets. To Amelia, they were hundreds of homes already divided in whispers. Lord Fenton wanted the mills. Sir Julian Price wanted the coal. Lavinia wanted the central estate and the hunting land. No one appeared interested in keeping the villages intact. The clerk finally permitted Amelia to enter, but directed her towards the servant's screen. Lavinia made the announcement loudly enough for the entire room to hear. Amelia took the seat. Clara leaned close. "We can leave, and allow them to buy the debt without competition. You did not come intending to purchase Ashbourne." "No. I came to understand why a solvent estate collapsed in less than 2 years." Clara opened a ledger across her lap. "Buying the answer may cost more than asking for it." Amelia watched the bidders. "Then let us see how badly they wish to prevent the question." The auction began at 9. The first bundle contained short-term notes issued after flooding destroyed 2 Ashbourne bridges. Lord Fenton bid £10,000. Price raised him by 100. Lavinia offered another 100. Then all 3 stopped. The debt's face value was £34,000. The second bundle followed the same pattern. 3 bids, tiny increases, no real contest. By the 4th lot, Amelia understood. They were not competing. They had divided the estate before entering the room. She wrote 3 figures on the margin of the catalogue and handed it to Clara. "These match the predicted sale values in the Northern Land Report." Clara studied the page. "That report was prepared 6 weeks ago, before the auction was announced, and before the debts were formally called." Amelia looked towards Lavinia. They knew which assets each creditor would claim. Clara lowered her voice. If we interfere, every bank connected to this room may refuse Briarwood credit. My company has survived storms, blockades, and 3 directors who believed arithmetic was beneath them. This is different. Yes, storms do not take insults personally. The auctioneer opened bidding on the largest bundle, a consolidated loan secured against Ashbourne Hall and all tenant leases. Opening offer £50,000. Lavinia raised her card. 50. No one opposed her. The auctioneer looked around the room. Any further bid? Amelia raised hers from behind the servant's screen. 60. Silence replaced amusement. Lavinia turned slowly. You misunderstand the nature of the sale. I understand it perfectly. This debt carries obligations beyond the capacity of a private household. Fortunately, I do not manage my finances like a private household. A banker near the front laughed. A woman with shipping profits believes she can administer an agricultural estate. Amelia looked at him. Your bank lost £40,000 on South American silver last spring. I would be careful when discussing administration. His smile vanished. Lavinia lifted her card. 61. 70, Amelia said. The room shifted. Sebastian looked directly at her for the first time. There was no gratitude in his expression, only disbelief and anger. Lavinia bid 72. Amelia answered with 80. Clara whispered, That reaches the limit we agreed. No. That reaches the limit I told you before I saw the collusion. Amelia. Send the transfer instruction. Clara stared at her. The directors will object. They usually do after I make them money. The bidding continued. At £95,000, Lord Fenton withdrew. At 102, Price did the same. Only Lavinia remained. 105, she said. Amelia raised her card. 120. The auctioneer nearly dropped his hammer. Lavinia's face became rigid. You are paying above the arranged value. That is generally how an auction works when more than one person is permitted to bid. A few younger guests concealed smiles. Lavinia did not. You will regret purchasing obligations you do not understand. Amelia turned towards the servants seated behind her. I have always found labor easier to understand than entitlement. The auctioneer called for another bid. None came. The hammer fell. By 11:45, Amelia had purchased every remaining bundle connected to Ashbourne. At midnight, the certificates were signed. Sebastian waited until the hall began to empty. Then he crossed the room. You will sell them back. Amelia handed the documents to Clara. Good evening to you as well, Your Grace. I will repay what you spent with interest. With what funds? His jaw tightened. That is not your concern. It became my concern at midnight. You bought my estate while I stood in that room unable to bid against my own creditors. I bought your creditors' rights. The estate still belongs to you, until you choose to take it. Amelia met his gaze. Your aunt intended to take it before breakfast. You expect me to believe you acted out of charity? No, I never invest from charity. Then what do you want? The truth. About what? Why your debts doubled while the value of your land remained stable. Why 3 bidders knew which assets they would receive before the sale. Why insurance funds for the flood damage never appeared in the repayment accounts. Sebastian's expression altered slightly. You have already examined my records. I examined the sale papers. They were careless enough. Lavinia approached, drawing on her gloves. Sebastian, do not permit this woman to provoke you. Briarwood has always mistaken commercial nerve for breeding. Amelia looked at her. And Valehurst has mistaken breeding for competence. Lavinia's eyes narrowed. You may have purchased paper tonight. You have not purchased acceptance. I came for neither. She turned back to Sebastian. All eviction notices are suspended from this moment. His anger faltered. What? No tenant is to be removed, no mill closed, and no worker dismissed until I have reviewed the accounts. You cannot issue instructions on Ashbourne land. As principal creditor, I can prevent actions that reduce the estate's value. You are using the debt to control me. I am using it to stop your advisors from emptying 3 villages, while you protect your pride. Sebastian stepped closer. You know nothing of my responsibility to those villages. I know their homes were offered tonight as pieces of a private bargain. That bargain was made without my consent. But the debts were signed with your name. The words struck harder than an insult. Amelia continued before he could answer. Tomorrow morning, I want every account book, insurance claim, labor contract, and land survey delivered to Ashbourne Hall. And if I refuse, then I exercise the rights you seem convinced I purchased for revenge. He studied her face. You would take the estate? No. I would place it under formal receivership, and every failure would become public. Lavinia intervened. Sebastian, she is bluffing. Amelia removed a prepared notice from Clara's case. I rarely carry printed legal documents for entertainment. Sebastian, read it. A receivership hearing could be requested within 48 hours. He folded the paper once. What are your conditions? Full access to the books. An independent inspection. No private negotiations with former bidders. And you will accompany me when I visit the affected villages. You require the Duke of Ashbourne to tour his own land under your supervision. I require the man who signed the contracts to meet the people paying for them. Lavinia gave a cold laugh. You see what she wants, Sebastian. Not money, submission. Amelia faced her. No. Submission is what this room expected from me when it placed my chair behind a screen. She collected her gloves. I am requesting accountability. The next morning, Ashbourne Hall's main library became a temporary accounts office. Ledgers covered the long table. Clara checked payments while Amelia compared invoices against insurance claims. Sebastian stood near the window, reading a list of suspended evictions. 27 families, he said. That is only in Brackenfield. My steward told me 6. Your steward lied. Edwin Cross has managed Ashbourne for 14 years. Then he has had 14 years to learn which questions you do not ask. Sebastian turned. You enjoy this. I enjoy accurate records. You enjoy reminding me that I failed. If discomfort makes you read the next contract, I will consider it useful. Before he could reply, Edwin Cross entered carrying another stack of books. He was a broad, greying man, with the confidence of a servant who had become essential to his employer. These are the final ledgers, Your Grace. Amelia looked at the covers. They are household accounts. The estate books were damaged in the flood. All of them? The lower office filled with water. Clara lifted one volume. This paper was manufactured last year. Cross hesitated. Amelia opened it. Several figures had been copied in the same ink, despite representing payments months apart. You rewrote these to preserve the records. Then, where are the originals? Destroyed. Sebastian watched the steward. Why was I not told? You had greater concerns after the flood, Your Grace. Amelia closed the book. That answer has probably cost Ashbourne more than the water did. Cross looked at Sebastian, waiting for him to defend his authority. Instead, the Duke said, You will provide every key to the offices, stores, and record rooms. The steward's face changed. Your Grace, now. It was the first time Sebastian had supported Amelia without attempting to take control from her. She noticed. She did not praise him. They travelled to Brackenfield that afternoon. The village bridge had been repaired with rough timber, although Ashbourne's accounts showed payment for new stonework. At the mill, workers said their wages had been reduced to cover machinery repairs. The machinery had never been repaired. Thomas Reed, the tenant's representative, met them outside a row of flooded cottages. He looked first at Sebastian, then at Amelia. Which one of you owns us now? No one owns you, Sebastian said. Thomas pointed towards a family packing furniture onto a cart. That notice says otherwise. Amelia took the eviction paper. It bore Ashbourne's seal and Edwin Cross's signature. The date was 3 days after the auction announcement. They rushed these notices before the debt changed hands, she said. Sebastian read the name of the family. The Hales have farmed here for 30 years. And still your office approved their removal. I did not see this. Thomas's expression hardened. That sentence is popular among gentlemen who sign at the bottom. Sebastian accepted the rebuke without using his title. Show me everything. For the next 2 hours, Thomas took them through the village. He showed them unpaid repair claims, missing grain deliveries, and a warehouse listed as empty in the accounts. The warehouse was full. Its doors carried the mark of a company called Northern Field Trading. Clara examined the shipping stamps. This company bought Ashbourne grain for half market value. Sebastian looked at Amelia. Who owns it? On paper, 3 minor investors. And in reality? Amelia touched the wax seal on one invoice. It bore the crest of Valehurst's private bank. Your aunt. Sebastian stared at the stacked grain, while villagers outside struggled to afford bread. Lavinia had not merely prepared to divide Ashbourne after its collapse. She had profited while causing it. A rider approached at speed and handed Clara a sealed message. She opened it, read once, and went pale. What is it? Amelia asked. Clara passed her the letter. The directors of Briarwood Shipping had called an emergency meeting in London. Every male member of the board had signed the notice. The final line stated that Amelia's purchase of Ashbourne's debt demonstrated emotional instability and financial recklessness. At noon the next day, they intended to remove her from control of her own company. Sebastian read the letter over her shoulder. They are attacking you because you protected my estate. Amelia folded it carefully. No. She looked towards the warehouse, bearing Lavinia's seal. They are attacking me because they believe a woman can earn their fortune but must never decide how it is used. The directors of Briarwood Shipping expected Amelia to arrive alone. Instead, she entered the boardroom with Clara Mayfield, 3 ledgers, and the silence of a woman who had already decided which men would not leave with their positions intact. 12 directors sat around the polished table. Every one of them had been appointed during her marriage. Most had praised her decisions when profits rose. None had signed the emergency notice using the words, Her Grace. Mr. Silas Morton, the senior director, stood. Lady Briarwood, this meeting concerns your recent financial conduct. Then begin with the figures. We are concerned that personal emotion influenced the purchase of Ashbourne's debt. Amelia placed the auction records before him. The debt was purchased below its recoverable value. You risked substantial capital to protect an unrelated estate. I purchased secured assets after identifying coordinated bidding. Morton glanced towards the other men. This is precisely the difficulty. You appear to believe commercial success permits you to act without restraint. Amelia looked around the room. For 10 years, these men had allowed her to negotiate shipping routes, cancel failing contracts, and rebuild the company after 2 vessels were lost. They had never called those decisions emotional, only this one. Because it had been made publicly. Because it had embarrassed noblemen. Because she had refused to ask permission. You intend to remove me, she said. We intend to appoint a responsible male chairman. A few men shifted in their seats. Clara opened the first ledger. Amelia remained standing. Mr. Morton, how much did the Baltic route earn last year? He hesitated. That is not relevant. £83,000. Who negotiated the insurance terms? The board approved them. Who wrote them? No answer. She turned to another director. Mr. Pelham, who cancelled the West Indies contract before the supplier collapsed? The decision was collective. Who presented the evidence? Again, silence. Amelia opened the second ledger. Each of you signed resolutions built from work you later described as unusually perceptive. You accepted my judgment while it increased your dividends. Now you call that same judgment instability, because I used it where titled men could see it. Morton's face reddened. This company cannot be governed according to a widow's sympathies. Amelia slid a document across the table. It will not be. He read the first page. His expression altered. Amelia owned 54% of Briarwood, shipping through shares secured in her marriage settlement and increased after her husband's death. The directors had assumed she held less because several blocks of shares were registered through trusts. They had never checked who controlled them. "I have called a shareholder vote," Amelia said. "Mr. Morton, Mr. Pelham, and Mr. Shaw are removed with immediate effect. You cannot dismiss half the board during an emergency meeting. I have just done so. You will destroy the company's standing." "No. I will improve its arithmetic." She appointed Clara as financial director and named 2 experienced captains and a warehouse administrator to the vacant seats. None belonged to the aristocracy. That disturbed the remaining men more than her victory. Morton rose from his chair. "You were admitted to society through marriage, Amelia. Do not mistake temporary wealth for permanent rank." She met his gaze. "My rank did not save this company. My work did." He left without another word. Clara waited until the doors closed. "Should I confess that I enjoyed that? After we secure the northern credit lines, you never allow celebration." "I allow it after the accounts are balanced." A servant entered with a message from Ashbourne. Sebastian had discovered Edwin Cross attempting to burn the estate's original contracts. One document had survived. It contained Lavinia's signature. Amelia returned to Ashbourne before nightfall. The library smelled of smoke. Edwin Cross sat under guard near the fireplace, while Sebastian stood over a table covered with scorched paper. He handed Amelia the surviving contract. It was an agreement between Cross, Northern Field Trading, and Valehurst Private Bank. The terms required Ashbourne grain to be sold below market value. In return, Cross received regular payments through an account registered under his brother's name. A second clause allowed Valehurst to acquire the Eastern coal seam if Ashbourne missed one repayment. Amelia read the final line. "This was signed 18 months ago." Sebastian looked towards Cross. Before the flood, the disaster had not created Ashbourne's collapse. It had merely concealed it. Cross wiped sweat from his brow. "Duchess Lavinia said the arrangement would stabilize the estate." "You diverted insurance payments," Amelia said. "I followed instructions." "You stole wages from mill workers." "I did what was necessary to preserve the principal house." Sebastian's expression hardened. "You preserved the house by starving the land beneath it." Cross turned desperately towards him. "Your Grace, I served your family for 14 years, and used that service to ensure I never questioned you." The admission cost Sebastian more than anger would have. He had trusted Cross because the man understood how to protect him from uncomfortable detail. Amelia could see that Sebastian understood it too. Cross lowered his voice. "Lavinia will deny everything." "Then she may deny her signature before the creditors' tribunal," Amelia said. A hearing had already been requested. Lavinia intended to challenge Amelia's control of the debt on the grounds that she had acted from personal attachment rather than sound financial judgment. By morning, the entire county knew. Rumors spread faster than evidence. Some claimed Amelia had purchased Sebastian's debt to force him into marriage. Others said the Duke of Ashbourne had surrendered his estate to a merchant's daughter because he could no longer manage it himself. The insults damaged them differently. Sebastian's pride was attacked. Amelia's competence was erased. He wanted to issue a public statement defending her. She refused. "They will say you spoke because I hold your debt. Then I will repay it first." "With imaginary funds?" His mouth tightened. "I will not remain silent while they describe you as a desperate widow purchasing a husband. You will speak about your contracts, your steward, and your responsibility. You will not explain my motives for me. I understand. Do you?" "Yes." He stood opposite her in the damaged library. For most of my life, men have defended my authority before I earned it. I thought offering the same protection to you was respect. It is not respect if it removes my voice. He nodded once. Then I will use mine only where the failure belongs to me. That answer surprised her, not because it was eloquent, because he meant it. The creditors' tribunal was held at Valehurst House. Lavinia chose the location deliberately. Portraits of dead dukes watched from the walls as though ancestry itself were evidence. Amelia was directed to a side table. Sebastian was offered the central chair. He remained standing until another chair was placed beside Amelia's. Lavinia noticed. So did everyone else. The tribunal chairman opened proceedings. Duchess Amelia Harcourt is accused of acquiring Ashbourne's debt for improper personal purposes and of interfering in the lawful management of a ducal estate. Lavinia rose. A title gained through marriage does not grant the judgment required to govern one of England's oldest estates. Several nobles murmured approval. She was born to commerce. Lavinia continued. Her instincts are transactional. She has mistaken possession of debt for equality of standing. Amelia did not interrupt. Lavinia displayed letters from Briarwood's former directors describing Amelia as impulsive, emotional, and increasingly difficult to control. Then she turned towards Sebastian. My nephew has been humiliated by a woman, exploiting his misfortune. Sebastian remained silent. Lavinia smiled, believing she had won his obedience. The chairman looked towards Amelia. Your response? Amelia stood. I have no intention of proving that commerce made me fit for your society. The room quietened. I intend to prove that members of your society committed fraud. Clara distributed copies of the bidding records. Amelia showed how the auction participants had avoided competing against one another. Each had stopped at a price matching an asset allocated weeks earlier in a private land assessment. She produced the Northern Field invoices, the unpaid insurance claims, and the warehouse records proving Ashbourne grain had been sold cheaply to a company funded by Valehurst Bank. Lavinia's expression did not change until Amelia placed the scorched contract on the table. This is not my signature, Lavinia said. It was witnessed by Edwin Cross. A disgraced steward will say anything to reduce his punishment. Thomas Reed entered with 2 village clerks. They carried transport books recording every grain wagon removed from Ashbourne. The dates matched the payments in Cross's secret account. Clara then presented the bank transfers. All 3 purchasing companies had received funds from the same Valehurst trust. The chairman examined the figures. Lavinia's composure began to fracture. This woman has assembled labourers, servants, and accountants to attack a ducal family. Amelia looked directly at her. No. Those people assembled the truth your family expected them to remain too insignificant to understand. Lavinia struck the table. You still do not belong among us. Amelia stepped away from the side table. I was seated with servants because you believed humiliation would make me leave. She looked around the chamber. You forgot that servants hear what their masters say. Accountants know where their money goes. Workers know what was never repaired. And merchants know when an auction is false. No one laughed now. Amelia placed the final ledger before the tribunal. I do not require your acceptance. I require an answer to the evidence. The chairman turned to Sebastian. Your Grace, do you dispute these records? Sebastian rose. No. Lavinia stared at him. He continued. I signed contracts without reading their full conditions. I permitted Edwin Cross to make decisions in my name because I preferred trust to scrutiny. Families on my land paid for that failure. He did not look towards Amelia. The Duchess of Briarwood did what I failed to do. She looked at the people before she looked at the estate. Lavinia stood abruptly. You would shame your own family for her? I shame myself for what I allowed. Cross was brought before the tribunal. Confronted with the bank records and transport books, he confessed. Lavinia had promised him control of the eastern mines after Ashbourne defaulted. The tribunal froze all Valerhurst-linked claims. A criminal inquiry into fraud and collusion was ordered. Amelia's ownership of the debt was confirmed. She did not forgive Sebastian's obligations. Instead, she restructured them. Ashbourne would repay the debt over 12 years. No village could be sold to meet an installment. Workers' wages were protected before creditor payments. A new estate council was formed with seats for tenants, mill workers, Clara, Thomas Reed, and Sebastian. Amelia retained final creditor authority until every reform was complete. Some nobles called the arrangement degrading. Thomas called it the first contract he had ever seen that remembered people lived on the land. 6 months later, Sebastian entered Amelia's London office carrying a payment receipt. She examined it carefully. The first installment is complete. With interest. The mill workers paid. The Brackenfield Bridge. Stonework begins Monday. The Flood families returned to repaired cottages. Only then did she look up. Sebastian removed his gloves. I have come to ask whether you will dine with me. As your creditor, as the woman whose judgment I respect. That is not the same as courtship. No, I hoped it might become courtship. Amelia looked again at the receipt. You still owe 11 years. I am prepared to be patient. Pay the workers before you order the wine. A small smile appeared. Already done. She closed the ledger. Then dinner may be considered. He did not offer her his arm as though guiding her from her own office. He opened the door and waited. Amelia walked through first. Months earlier, society had placed her behind a servant's screen. Now the Duke followed her not because she owned his debt, but because she had taught him that dignity was not inherited, it was demonstrated.